I'm Carissa from Three Bridges Yoga, and today with the help of Nikki, we'll be walking you through halfway lift pose. In Sanskrit, this pose is called Ardha Uttanasana, which actually translates to half forward fold. But because we often come into this pose from a forward fold position, you're likely to hear it called halfway lift pose or even flat back. So today we'll start by reviewing the alignment of halfway lift pose, and then we'll review modifications for some of the most common misalignments that we see in this pose. Lastly, we'll take a look at halfway lift pose within the context of some common transitions found in a Vinyasa yoga class. So let's go ahead and get started with the alignment of the pose. So start by coming into forward fold, stepping your feet hips width apart on your mat. Equally distribute your weight across all four corners of each foot. Bring a soft bend into your knees and place your palms onto your shins. With an inhale, pull your torso away from your thighs, straightening your elbows, bringing yourself into a flat back. So when we say flat back, what we mean is a neutral spine. So you're maintaining all the natural curvatures in your spine here while in this pose. So as Nikki is so nicely demonstrating, you can see that halfway lift pose is a pretty intense stretch for the hamstrings, which are both hip extensors and knee extensors, and also for the calves, which do dorsiflexion or flex the foot. Okay. So you're also strengthening your core body. And so by core body, it's not just your abdominals, but also your lower back. Halfway lift pose strengthens all the muscles that run along the spine, supporting the spine and helping to maintain your posture. Halfway lift pose stretches your torso and allows you some opening across your chest and shoulders. So from here, bring your hands to your hips and then come on up to stand. So the first common misalignment comes by bending at the waist, and that most often is a result of tight hamstrings. So your hamstrings run down through the backside of your leg. They cross the knee joint, and all but one of your hamstrings attaches up at the ischial tuberosity, a spot on your pelvis that we often refer to as the sitting bones. So when the leg is straight and the hamstrings are short or tight, that naturally pulls the pelvis down. So the attachment here at the sitting bones will want to pull down, taking you into a posterior pelvic tilt. So now you'll see this as Nikki comes back into halfway lift pose. And if her hamstrings were tight here and she was straightening her legs, so go ahead and straighten your legs, you would see that the attachment up on the sitting bones would pull the pelvis down into a posterior pelvic tilt. So what that creates is a folding here at the waist, which also results in a rounding of the upper back and shoulders. Okay? So to modify for tight hamstrings, you'll want to take a deep bend into the knees. So by bending into the knees, you're providing a little bit more slack into your hamstrings, and you can more easily hinge from your hips, sending your sitting bones back. If your hamstrings are really tight, you may also want to take the option of bringing your elbows right up onto your thighs, taking an even deeper bend into your knees and turning your palms up. So here you can really focus on the lengthening of the spine in halfway lift pose while taking the hamstrings out of the picture. Okay, so go ahead and return to halfway lift, and then hands to the hips. Come all the way up to stand. The second common misalignment comes when the muscles at the front of the body, so the chest and the anterior shoulder, when those muscles are tight or short. So because a lot of our daily activities induce this sort of forward folding of the torso, someone's natural posture might actually be with shoulders rounded forward. So it actually takes a little bit more work to open up across the collarbones. So let's look at that misalignment while in halfway lift pose. So go ahead and come back to halfway lift. And so when the muscles on the front side of the body are short, again, the shoulders are naturally going to round forward. So what that creates here is some extreme kyphosis right through the mid-back. So it's where the spine kind of pops or jets up out of the torso. So to correct for this, you'll want to lift your chest higher. So keep lifting your chest until you can feel your shoulder blades press firmly onto your back body and the backs of the shoulders move towards one another. The same energy that you would have in cobra pose, so that opening of the front body. Okay, and then go ahead and release, come to stand. So the third misalignment happens here up at the neck. Okay? Oftentimes, a cue given for halfway lift or flat back is to look up. So go ahead and come to a forward fold, Nikki. So when the cue says to lift halfway and to look up, right, what often happens is students will want to lift their entire head. So that causes compression here at the cervical spine. So it's a crunch. It may feel like more lengthening, like you're opening, but really all you're doing is hyperextending here through the neck. So to adjust for that, you'll want to bring your chin slightly down towards your chest. So keeping your head in line with your spine. So your ears are level with your shoulders. So relative to your forward fold, you are in fact sending your gaze up, but it doesn't have to be all the way up to the ceiling. So think of this more as a lengthening forward. Okay? So come on up, bring your hands to your hips. So now we're going to take a look at halfway lift pose within the context of some common transitions found in a Vinyasa yoga class. Now it's really critical when we move through these transitions that we fully understand what it feels like to hinge from the hips. So just a little exercise that you can do to get that feeling is to take your peace fingers, so your index finger and your middle fingers together, and place them right at your hip creases, so right where the bikini line would be. And then take a soft bend into the knees, and from there fold your torso forward, sending your hips back. So you're going to feel a little pinch into your fingers, and that's how you know that you're hinging, in fact, from your hips. So go ahead and stand for me, Nikki, and just demonstrate here that when you keep your fingers at the hip creases, but you fold at your waist, so if you fold here at the waist, you're not going to feel that pinch in your fingers. So that's just a little exercise that you can do to make sure that you are fully understanding the concept of the hip hinge. So the first transition that we're going to do is a swan dive to forward fold, and then a reverse swan dive back up again. So start with your arms down by your sides, and then inhale, sweep your arms high overhead. Bring a soft bend into your knees, hinge from your hips, and fold halfway out. Arms sweep wide, so there's your halfway lift, and then fold all the way down to the floor. When you're reversing this, it's halfway lift pose, but instead arms sweep out to the sides and then continue lifting from your chest all the way up overhead. And then bring your arms back down again. Good. So the second sequence we'll take you through is a half sun salutation. So for that, you're going to inhale your arms high overhead. Exhale, swan dive out to your forward fold. Inhale to your halfway lift pose, palms to the shins. Exhale back to your forward fold. With an inhale, reverse your swan dive, finding halfway lift along the way, and bring the arms to the sides. Great. So the last transition that we'll do is a step back. So with an inhale, reach your arms high overhead, and with an exhale, swan dive out to your forward fold. From here, take halfway lift pose as you inhale, and then keeping this length in your spine, bend your knees until the floor meets your hands, and step back with your right foot into a lunge. So you can see that from the transition of halfway lift pose to Nikki's step back into lunge, not much changed in her torso. Okay, go ahead and step it back to downward facing dog. And the same thing applies stepping forward. So on an inhale, Nikki's going to lift her right leg up into the air. And then exhale, step her right foot to her right thumb. So on the inhale, essentially you're finding halfway lift. And then exhale, stepping the left foot forward to a forward fold. And then reverse swan dive, come all the way up. And then mountain pose. Great. So we'll do the same thing, stepping back to high plank. So this comes into play with sun salutation A. So on your inhale, sweep your arms high overhead. Exhale, swan diving out to forward fold. Take a halfway lift inhale, and then maintaining this lengthened spine, bend the knees until the hands find the earth. Step back one leg at a time into your high plank. So again, still from halfway lift pose to high plank, she's still maintaining all this neutrality in the spine. Go ahead and lift your hips to downward facing dog. And then just simply walk your feet up to your hands. Good. Come all the way up. And mountain pose. So a regular practice of halfway lift pose will not only work to strengthen your core body, so remember, that's not just your abdominals, but also your lower back. It will help to improve your posture, and it will also work to keep you safe through a lot of the transitions that you find yourself in during a Vinyasa yoga class. So thank you for watching. Namaste.